In today's digital world, information has become a valuable asset. Whether we are using social media, entering a contest, or gaining access to a website, we give consent to share our personal information every day. But what's happening with that information? And is our consent always well informed? Dr. Susan Smith is a lecturer and philosopher in the Department of Cognitive Science at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Her research explores the concept of informed consent in decision making. We're so glad you could take some time for us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Data is a hot commodity. What are some of the other ways we sign away our privacy? And what type of information are we giving away?
Well, obviously our name, our phone number, our email, our home address. One other way in particular that's interesting is our genetic information. So right now, engaging with programs like Ancestry.com, 23andMe, we actually pay to send our genetic information to them. And they keep that information and they store it. Those, especially 23andMe, will give you an option to opt into research, to participate in research. So it kind of tugs on our conscience a little bit, like it doesn't cost me anything. I've already sent them my DNA sample. So why wouldn't I do the societally, why wouldn't I benefit society and participate in this research? And it seems like a really, noble thing to do. But little do we know that they're selling that information to huge pharmaceutical companies like GlaxoSmithKline to do that research. So we're not talking about the struggling scientists in the lab, trying to find a cure for a disease. We're looking at them actually selling this information to huge companies to make an even larger profit. And we're paying them to do that in that case. As well, law enforcement now has access to that information. So even in these studies, and if information gets taken by law enforcement, the information is said to be de-identified. So, it wouldn't be able to come directly back to you. But it's our DNA, which is the most identifiable information about us. So it's certainly problematic.
There's no shortage of negative media coverage around data breaches and public outrage related to them. And yet, how often do we fully comprehend what we're agreeing to when we click that button?
I would say almost never do we really understand what we're agreeing to. We click on that button that says, click that you agree, acknowledge, and agree to our user agreement. One study found that if you actually read every user agreement that you click on per year, you would end up, I had the number written down, spend 76 working days reading user agreements. So not only do we not do it, it's actually impossible to do it. And one particular study that was published using photos from Facebook a few years ago, a Stanford study was using facial recognition software to create an algorithm that would predict someone's sexual orientation. And Facebook was allowing a third-party provider to have access to their platform. And they took the data from that app because it's public information, because when you sign up with Facebook, you agree to let them share your information. They use that data and your indication of sexual orientation to help train their algorithm. So essentially, your picture was being shown as part of a research study. In what world would you ever imagine that your face would end up being part of a study on social or sexual orientation? It's just impossible to fathom exactly what could happen to your data. Most of us think in terms of privacy or identity theft or our credit cards being stolen, and those are certainly things that we should care about. But beyond that, it gets very scary.
Do you think that most people realize that they're paying for access to products with their personal information?
Uh, because I'm hearing the term, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. Because I'm hearing that more, I think people are starting to realize that. But there's a fatigue out there. There's nothing we can do about it. I think one researcher called it breach fatigue. That I need access to these things. I need access to these apps. I need access to my email. What can I do? Some of our, even our financial accounts, we're almost forced to deal online nowadays. So I have to engage. It's not as if we have a choice in the matter. If you want to hold a job and be a functioning and contributing member of society, you have to engage with the internet.
The terms of service agreements are supposed to facilitate informed consent. So how effective are they at doing that? And how much data are they actually accessing through this means?
I don't know how much data they're accessing. We know that, and this is another issue, we know that there are just masses of data out there that are being used in mathematical algorithms to make decisions about how much insurance people are going to pay, what college you're going to get into, how likely you are. We have these algorithms that calculate rates of recidivism. So if I get charged with a crime, instead of having, a biased person create my sentence, all this data goes into a trained algorithm to decide, how likely am I to commit another crime. So this information, even just beyond the personal piece, is being used to create rules in society right now. The question about informed consent, are we really informed when we read these, who knows how many page-long documents, because we don't typically read them. Are we actually informed if we did read them? And again, my answer is no, absolutely not. And this is how I actually got interested in this area, is working in bioethics and looking at human subjects experimentation and concepts of informed consent. And to be informed, to make a free and voluntary decision to do something, very basically, you have to be free. It has to be voluntary. You can't be coerced, right? You have to be competent, and you have to have all the information needed to make that decision. Well, if the informed consent doesn't tell you explicitly what's going to happen to your information, then you don't have all the knowledge.
So given all of this, how can we be more vigilant or aware with what we're sharing out there?
There are a few really simple ways to protect ourselves from the data mining and data sharing that goes on as we interact with apps and programs on the internet. One is to really limit the amount of information that we're putting out there. So with the COVID outbreak in the spring, a lot of graduates weren't able to participate in their traditional graduate ceremonies. So they were sharing a lot of information online with hashtags, grad 2020. And that allows people to know a lot of things about you, where you went to school, your age, even where you're living. So limit the amount of information that you're sharing. Another way is to browse in private mode so that websites cannot keep and store your information. Using different browsers, so not sticking with the same browser all the time, is also helpful. You can use browser extensions, which achieve the same type of effect, that these websites aren't keeping your information. There's also a really interesting website called simpleoptout.com that allows you to click. They have a list of companies and websites, and you can actually click on them, and they'll show you exactly how you can opt out of things like targeted advertising or even direct calls, so you can get on their do not call list, because the targeted advertising really influences our consumer behavior in ways that we're not aware of. And one way to really understand this and get a little more in depth with it is to watch the recent documentary, The Social Dilemma, which has been out for a little while now. And it just shows you how these websites like Facebook, Google, Twitter work to up your engagement with the app, because that makes them more money from advertisers and gives them more data to share and sell.
So are there any overarching laws, legislation, regulations out there designed to protect us?
Right now, it's like the Wild West. In the European Union right now, they have what's called the GDPR, the data protection laws that allow you to opt out of any kind of data sharing and still have access to the apps that you need. They allow you to withdraw any information from those data saving apps. They also require a very clear informed consent for using apps. So if a website is going to sell your data, they have to tell you that, and they have to tell you exactly who they're selling the data to and what it's going to be used for. So there isn't any, veil around exactly what's going to be happening here. It's not like opting into research to help humanity to realize that you're really, just helping to fund big pharma. So yes, that law exists in the European Union. We have yet to see a law like that in Canada. Across the US, the only place that has something similar to that is California. And it's part of their privacy protection laws now. And their laws are very similar to the GDPR guidelines.
Well, it is very clear that our information is being sold, traded, and shared, and we as consumers need to better understand informed consent and what we can do to protect our information. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for your time today, sharing your expertise on this fascinating topic.
Thank you for having me.